I'm Jonathan Golding. I'm a diabetes and endocrine registrar. I've taken a bit of time out from my training to do a doctoral fellowship at the hospital. I'm researching type 1 diabetes in older adults, looking primarily at how frailty impacts type 1 diabetes self-management. It came to me from seeing patients in hospital, basically. I kind of realised that there were some people with type 1 diabetes who were getting older, but perhaps the services weren't there to meet their needs, and it seemed unjust that people were having to sort of go to nursing homes or have excess care when an equivalent person without diabetes might not have had to have that. So I wanted to investigate it a bit further, and when I looked at sort of the literature, there was nothing there on that subject. Probably, I think, because up until now, it probably wasn't possible for people to live that long with type 1 diabetes, and sort of advancements in care have made it more possible for people to live a long age. So I guess in some ways, we're a victim of our own success on that front. And when I found there was nothing there, I thought, okay, let's try and think about what we could do. And I came up with the idea of a very simple observational study looking at how frailty impacts glycemic control. We know in type 2 diabetes that older adults who are living with frailty have more fluctuations in their glucose levels, and I wondered whether that might be the same in type 1. So we devised a project where we put continuous glucose monitors on everyone. We measured people's frailty status and looked to see whether those living with frailty were having more hypos like we see in type 2. And it went from there. I applied to Diabetes UK, I applied to Novo Nordisk UK Research Foundation. I was shortlisted for interview, but unfortunately they didn't award me any funding. So at that point I thought maybe that was the end of my research journey. But amazingly this opportunity came up at the hospital to allow me to do this doctoral fellowship to continue with the research, and I've been able to do the project and actually add another project onto it, which is more of a qualitative research angle where I've been able to interview people living with type 1 diabetes and their carers to find out what their experiences of getting older are. And so it's been a really amazing journey. Lots of challenges that I didn't expect. Trying to find people and recruit them to a study was difficult. But once I've been able to identify people, getting them onto study, it's been really enjoyable. And I've learned things that I think are new to the field. Certainly some of the results were not at all what I was expecting. For example, if you think about the quantitative study looking at glycemic levels, those living with frailty didn't have more hypos than those without. In fact, their glycemic control, if anything, was a little bit better. And when I took that to the interviews and sort of reflected on that, people with older adults with type 1 were telling me that they're actually finding managing their diabetes a bit easier, if anything, now that they're retired. They've got more time, they've got technology to help them with it, they're able to dedicate more time to their diabetes, and they know their own bodies more, so they know how to react to different situations. So it was completely unexpected. So a really interesting finding. I've learned a lot, I feel very embedded into the field, and I've had a great time. One of the things that I've learned from this process is that perhaps frailty isn't the key issue in type 1 diabetes in older adults, because, as I've said, people are telling me that they're finding it easier. But one thing that definitely is an issue is cognitive impairment and the idea that you might lose the ability to self-manage your own diabetes. So I want to turn my attention more towards dementia and type 1 diabetes. I've had conversations with the medical school and looking to do a clinical lectureship, perhaps starting in August 2026. So fingers crossed that will come through, but I guess we'll have to wait and see what the application holds. I have been able to secure a little bit of extra funding to set up some workshops looking at living with type 1 diabetes and dementia. So we'll get some experts in the field, some people living with diabetes, to come and talk about their experiences. And hopefully that will look forward even further into the future about how we can maybe use some of the current technologies that are available in type 1 diabetes management and apply them to a context of dementia. I would say it's a brilliant opportunity. A time to research a topic in greater depth is amazing. You learn a lot about yourself, you learn a lot about the subject that you're learning about, and I would highly recommend it to anyone.